February 19th, 1945, following 3 days of United States Navy shelling. "450 ships were now off the 8 square miles of Iwo Jima.
There was hundreds of ships around that island.
It had been bombed and bombed and bombed.
To where that they thought there wouldn't be many people left there.
The Japanese plan to defend Iwo Jima was simple.
To wait until the beaches were crowded before they unleashed all their heavy artillery.
Wait for the inevitable traffic jam of Marines and vehicles.
Well, they had let the whole beach get completely full of Marines, and they let a mortar barrage down that beach and killed hundreds of us.
It was a slaughter.
When we got to the beach, it was chaos. I thought the end of the world was coming. The shells and bullets were coming in and landing in the volcanic sand there, and wounded people, the dead people were all around.
Most of the fire was coming from Mount Suribachi, which is the volcanic part of Iwo Jima.
We had a ringside seat. We could see the battle lines going on.
And so they had every area planned out so they could fire their artillery or their mortars.
American military strategists not only underestimated the number of Japanese on the island, but also the difficulty of Marines moving inland off the landing beaches.
As soon as they landed, they were running up a ramp, not down a ramp, because the way the beach is, it's slanted towards the sea.
The volcanic gravel on the beaches was almost like quicksand, but a quicksand made up of small black pellets.
When we finally got ashore, got up the bank from the beach, and it was just like, I've said this many times, it was just like walking on BBs.
Marines couldn't dig foxholes or run. Weighted down, most sank into the volcanic sand.
It looked like little cinders, but every time you took a step, you went down about 6 inches to a foot.
Some volcanic sand embankments the Marines had to crawl over were 15 feet high.
Then your footing is sand, and that sand can be up to your knees at one point. Now you're crawling, you're not running.
Speaking to you now on the island of Iwo Jima, the Sulphur Islands, mapped to the 4th and 5th Divisions of the United States Marines, planned to arrest this island from the Japanese and give Uncle Sam another base only 660 miles from the Japanese mainland itself. The fighting is going on now on a ridge just in front of us. You can probably hear the noise of the shelling in the planes overhead as they drop their bombs, and every once in a while you hear them strafe and send rockets down.
Once inland on Iwo Jima, machine gun bullets, mortars, and shells rained down from everywhere. But nobody could see the Japanese or their guns. This battle would be fought a yard at a time, from cave to cave, with knives, grenades, flamethrowers, bayonets, and rifles. More than 800 Americans died for every square mile taken on Iwo Jima.
My greatest asset on Iwo Jima was the individual spirit and toughness of my individual Marines. Didn't matter what the odds were, didn't matter how many people we lost yesterday. Tomorrow morning, we're going to move forward as far as we can go. We're going to try to get to this objective line. Some days we made it, some days we made 200 yards, some days no yards.
By the end of day one of the invasion, Mount Suribachi and its Japanese guns and troops had been cut off by the 5th Marine Division. It didn't take Marine generals long to discover that 21,000 Japanese troops were not on Iwo Jima. They were in Iwo Jima. The Japanese had been preparing for an invasion since early 1944. Japanese Army General Tadamichi Kurabayashi, who had taken control of the island in June of 1944, ordered an extensive 11-mile underground tunnel system built on the island.
Part of the intricate defense that the commander of the Japanese forces there was to dig tunnels. So when they say, the Japanese were in Iwo Jima, they really meant it. They had a very interesting system of tunnels that went for miles, and they would allow them to just pop out and take advantage of an oncoming enemy, the American Marine. And so they could move ammunition, they could move supplies that they needed, but eventually the advances of the American forces will start to understand that these tunnels are something we're going to have to go into.
Every inch of the island had been pre-mapped by the Japanese into killing zones.
They had machine gun nests out of Mount Suribachi. They had caves that were very elaborate. They had electric power there. They had fresh water.
They just stayed in the caves and shot at you from the caves.
And the cave system was their way of taking advantage of the terrain and making the Marines pay for every square foot of Iwo Jima they fought for.
Iwo Jima's defenders, willing to die for their emperor, would let the Marines come to them.
The Japanese realized that they weren't going to be able to keep us from taking the island. Their philosophy was to kill so many Americans that we would agree to a negotiated peace treaty with Japan.
Pat Famino landed with the 5th Marine Division on February 19th.
I was a bazooka man. I was in the engineers, and we cleared minefields. The biggest job we had was closing caves to seal them up.
When we can't dig them out, we burn them out.
They used to sink down into the tunnel. There was an opening in the pillbox, and they used to go underneath us and come out in back of us. They killed a lot of guys that way. So we learned that the hard way, you know what I mean?
They draw a bead on us again.
United States Marines gained just 4,000 yards of the island during the first 9 days of the unrelenting fight on Iwo Jima. In just over a week, there were already 7,000 American casualties.
And you know what really got me? Is when these grown men, when this fierce fighting was going on, they would cry and wanted their mothers. And that's a hard one to take when they do that. That's the worst thing I ever seen.
You see your friends fall and you feel bad, but you got to keep going.
Ladies and gentlemen, this spot from which we have been broadcasting tonight, tomorrow or in a week or month, these men will be on their way on the road to Tokyo.
This is a dreadful, desolate, ugly island. The dirt is sort of a grayish, yellowish, volcanic ash. Very soft and crumbly. And when you dig a foxhole, the sides keep coming in on you. There is very little vegetation because practically nothing grows here. It has to struggle. It has too great a struggle with the volcanic ash.
Iwo Jima is a challenging destination. Especially for a 100-year-old like Ed Cavallini. In Guam, this veteran of the 4th Marine Division and his daughter Jane soldier on.
What do you say, Ed? You ready to do this?
Joining up with a group of travelers. They are all headed back to Iwo Jima. Each has their reasons for making the trip. Ed wants to recapture a sense of place.
I wasn't as scared as I should have been because I was very, like I said, I was so fortunate to have been with a very veteran organization. Most of the guys said this is their 4th operation, and they knew what to expect. So I was really lucky to be with an organization like that.
Meanwhile, Iwo Jima has existed only in his mind for Charlie Dickey. At this point in the trip to Guam, Charlie can only imagine what he'll experience and feel when he finally gets to the island. Ed Cavallini has some jitters too.
He was thinking about the men, all his men, that everyone was either killed or wounded, all of his platoon.
The name Iwo Jima carries a tone of awe today.
When everybody thinks of Iwo Jima, they think the first thing that comes to mind is the savage violence.
And into the firing ports and embrasures of the Japanese caves.
Talk about a lot of other conflicts in World War II, but savage violence in capital letters was Iwo Jima, and yet my father didn't talk about that savagery.
March 23rd. Dear Mary, I don't know how the Japs expected to write on this stuff, but until we get away from here, it's the best available. Many thanks for your V-mail, which showed up a few days ago. Although the place is tactically secured, there are still plenty of Japs in a gorge in the northern part who are anything but secured. They have nothing big left, but plenty of machine guns, knee mortars, and snipers. They've been trying for 10 days to liquidate them, but the men in the lines are so damn tired, they haven't got much left. And the Japs have to be handled by infantry, as nothing else can get at them. The weather has been good, although pretty cold at night at first. It is an extraordinary island. In many places, the ground is so hot, you can cook by merely burying the can in the sand. There are sulfur pits everywhere that smell like Yellowstone Park. Give my regards to everyone. Best love for the family. I hope the next couple of months slide by pretty fast for you, and that you end up in a decent slot. Love, Charlie.
I'm going to be trying to imagine when I'm near the beach what it was like to carry your weapon and 30, 40, 50, 60 pounds, whatever it is, on your back. Do I creep ahead? Do I stay where I am? Do I look to the left? Do I look to the right?
February 23rd.
And there's a scene of violent activity there as these Marines are going up and down that ridge, carrying supplies up to the men on the front lines and bringing casualties back out. There are casualties too, there are plenty of them.
The battle on Iwo Jima was punctuated with so many acts of courage and bravery that a record 27 medals of honor were awarded to American Marines and United States Navy personnel for this one fight. Herschel Woody Williams, that flamethrower in the 3rd Marine Division, earned his nation's highest military award on Iwo. On February 23rd, at the first Japanese airfield, Williams and his flamethrower fought out front for 4 hours with rifle support from 4 fellow Marines. Woody and his 70-pound flamethrower silenced Japanese concrete bunkers, blockhouses, pillboxes, and the troops inside. He returned to Marine lines 5 more times to get additional flamethrowers.
But I was getting close enough that I could get my flame into the pillbox, and they came charging. There's 5 or 6 in charging around the side of the pillbox, and they had rifles and bayonets. And I just opened up, and the flame hit them. They stopped, took all the oxygen out of the air, and they just fell over.
On the same day of Williams' heroic attack on the Japanese, and about 1,000 yards away, 2 flags were raised on the top of captured Mount Suribachi. The second, larger flag raising on Mount Suribachi, captured by AP photographer Joe Rosenthal and Marine Corps cameraman Bill Janoust, later killed on Iwo, made history. Little